You're listening to the Leadership Blend Podcast.
I'm ready.
On the Thinking Out Loud Network. Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.
All right, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. And today is all about veterans. So we're going to talk about services. We're going to talk about a great organization. But I don't introduce people. I let them introduce themselves. So I'm going to let our guest today introduce himself. So take it away.
Thanks, Ricardo. Well, my name is Lloyd Knight. I'm an Air Force veteran.
I didn't even get to ask you that. Now I know. I didn't get to ask you that. So now I know.
So I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I joined when I was 17.
Really?
Out of Radcliffe, Kentucky. And I joined the Air Force because in 1986, 1987, unemployment was much different back then than it is now. I couldn't get a job at Hardee's back then. Seriously. And
I actually worked at Hardee's. It didn't go well. It didn't go well.
And you know what? Believe it or not, I was a terrible high school student. Was too interested in girls and sports and didn't pay attention, didn't have the discipline. So I decided to join the Air Force. Okay. And I joined the Air Force, and I left to go to basic training 2 weeks after high school. And then I wanted to fly. I wanted to. Always loved airplanes. My dad was in the Army growing up, and I wanted to do something with planes.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Was it something in your lineage? Was somebody in the military?
Yeah, definitely. My entire family has been in the military.
Oh, okay.
So I knew it was out there, and I knew I didn't want to join the Army or the Marines, and the Air Force was right for me. So I became a loadmaster, and what a loadmaster is it's you fly on big cargo planes. The pilot controls the aircraft. The loadmaster controls everything else. The passengers, the cargo, the weight and balance.
It was a power thing. Okay, that's.
And so it was. It was a very interesting because the joke was on me because I didn't want to go to college. I thought it would be a waste of time, and I spent my first year in school, going to different flight schools and survival school and loadmaster school, and
a lot of schools,
and I learned how to have discipline and to be a disciplined student. And I grew up, and I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I flew several different types of cargo planes. I got to see the world, over 60 countries.
Nice. And
participate in, every major humanitarian and wartime operation from 1987 to 2007. And I ended my career as a first sergeant. And what the first sergeant in the Air Force is concentrated on your people. The motto of the Air Force first sergeant is "People are our business." So you're really focus on morale, welfare, and discipline of the workforce. And then I retired. I retired right at the earliest possible point I could, 20 years in service.
How old were you when you retired?
I was 38.
Nice.
So 38 years old. And I retired. This is really great. I retired loving the Air Force.
Oh, that's good.
And the funny thing is, you remember I didn't want to go to college. I ended up retiring with 4 college degrees.
Nice. And what? What were the degrees in?
So I got an associate's in air crew operations,
nice,
an associate's in human resources management, and a bachelor and master's degree in logistics and transportation management. So all through my military, the GI Bill, my military benefits, and
that's the only time I get jealous of y'all when they talk about a GI Bill.
Tuition assistance is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you guys are so lucky. Well, you earned it.
We earned it.
You're still lucky, but wow, that's
So I between having that self-discipline and all the education benefits and the experience I have and all the amount of leadership schools I went to, I put myself in a very good spot to transition out of the military. And I was pretty blessed. I spent my last day on active duty on a Friday. And then that weekend I moved to Atlanta and I started with UPS on that Monday morning and jumped into a great organization, but also had a great opportunity. I was able to, I got hired right on as a manager and was able in just a 4-year period get promoted several times and moved up to the director level. One of the things I started at UPS was a business resource group dedicated to veterans. So for those of you who are out there who work for Fortune 500 companies, you know that many of them have business resource groups. And at UPS, we have a Veterans Business Resource Group. We have an African American Business Resource Group, a Latino, a working mothers, a millennials. So we have dozens of different types. And I had the opportunity about 8 years ago to start the very first one at UPS here at our corporate office. And that really becomes the foundation of what we're here to talk about, rolling out of that Veterans Business Resource Group into creating VETLANTA.
Okay, we just rolled over half my questions, but it's fine. It's fine. All right, so working at UPS and actually starting, because before we came on here, you was talking about building a organization, kind of within an organization. Tell me about that.
Yeah, great. So I got a call. It was 6 years ago, just a couple weeks ago. 6 years ago, a couple weeks ago, we just celebrated our 6th anniversary. I get this call from Coca-Cola. David Wademaker at Coca-Cola. David was a Marine Corps veteran. He was doing this fellowship program at Coca-Cola. He was a hired employee, and he was doing rotations. And he ended up doing a rotation with with one of their finance directors, a guy by the name John Phillips, who's our current vice president and one of the founders. And John was, really passionate about veterans. He led the Veterans Day program at Coca-Cola for many years. And John thought of this brilliant idea. Hey, let's get all the Veterans Business Resource Groups or affinity groups, whatever you want to call it, into a room and talk about what each organization was doing to help veterans. So 6 years ago, we sat in that very first room at Coca-Cola, and there was probably about 25 people at that first meeting representing maybe 12, 15 different types of organizations. And that really started what would become VETLANTA. And that very first meeting, talk a little bit about that first meeting, each organization, each company was able to cover what they were doing for veterans. And we were just surprised. Our organizations collectively were doing these big things for veterans nationally, but even more important locally, because it's all about the ATL, right? It's about our backyard, helping people in our backyard, helping our neighbors out. And we were hiring millions, and I'm not exaggerating, of veterans, donating millions of dollars and volunteering millions of hours over the decades. You look at who was at that first meeting: Coca-Cola, Home Depot, UPS,
yeah, you have all this.
AT&T, GE, exactly. The big Atlanta Fortune 500 companies. But what was missing, there was a couple of things missing. And the first was none of us were talking to each other. Here we have this great, big, powerful network that could do big things, and nobody was talking to each other. And then, a lot of people, this will surprise a lot of people that know me, but I didn't say 10 words that first meeting. And which people are like, yeah, right, because I like to talk. But I sat there going, wow, it's all about scalability. And, Ricardo, you ran a nonprofit before, and you know that when you run something like that, it's always the same 2 or 3 people when it comes to volunteerism, right? Well, that's no different from the military, from our Fortune 500 companies. It's the same 2 or 3 people getting up early in the morning or coming in on the weekends, to go work at the homeless shelter or hand out food at USO or a food bank or something like that. And I thought, wow, the next time I do an event, I'm going to be able to take 2 people from each of these companies, and we're going to be able to do it bigger and better. So that was the very first meeting, and that was such a successful first meeting. We had a second meeting. I would love to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the space.
All right. Well, before we do that, so what is VETLANTA? Now, it's not Vet Atlanta, so everybody don't make that mistake, because I did. It's not Vet Atlanta, it's VETLANTA. So what is VETLANTA?
So VETLANTA, and that name is such a cool name.
Y'all really did coin it. I was really impressed with that.
And our logo, if you look at our logo is designed by John Walter Thompson, which is a big international advertising firm now called Wunderman Thompson. They did it free of charge, just like everything. And they've done the advertising for the U.S. Marine Marines for the last 60 years.
Nice.
So they designed a great logo. We really got a great name. And then when we formed, we looked at all options. So we looked at forming as a 501c something. We looked at forming as an LLC. And really what we came up to was a monumental decision to do things different. And we didn't know how monumental it was going to be, but we formed as a club. And then to take it to the next level, we actually chartered ourselves. We were a club and we're going to have members, but we chartered ourselves never to accept money or never to give money.
I told you, I'm still in awe that y'all actually did the club route. I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah, we wanted to focus on collaboration and volunteerism. And by doing that, it flipped the script in two ways. And we were talking about it a little bit in the lobby. The first way it flipped the script was within our own companies. Because our own companies, I tell you what, if you work for a big Fortune 500 company, you get asked for money a lot. A lot. And all the time. And most of the time, it's not very legitimate. And a lot of times, it's legitimate organizations, but they try to get a six-figure check before they date you, right? so it's like, hi, I'm such and such. Can I have $100,000?
So they want a ring before y'all actually date.
Exactly.
Yeah, they want a ring.
And so you get worn out from that, and honestly, everybody becomes tone deaf, and you ignore everybody. So I'm big into elevator speeches, and I came up with this great elevator speech. Hi, I'm Lloyd Knight. I'm with VETLANTA. I don't want your money. And you know what? It was like, when you're watching horse races and they let off the gun and all the horses' heads shoot up.
Out the gate.
That's how the response we got. They're like, okay, I want to hear more. And then we would say, what we want to focus on collaboration with volunteers. And by the way, your company's already doing this. Your company has so many thousands of veteran employees, and they're already doing things. Why not put a structure behind it and get involved? And look, we don't want your money, but we would love if you would host an event. What about giving us some meeting space just to meet? And by the way, we do this after hours, so if you can throw some food at us, that would be great. Our original meetings, I would go out and buy a couple of cases of water and cookies, right?
That's always a good start.
But if you could throw some food at us, that would be great. And that flipped the script with Fortune 500 companies right away. So they started supporting us, which was a big thing because they weren't getting a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Because we're not a 501c3, but they saw the value of what we were doing. And then it flipped the script in a second way, and that's with the nonprofit organizations themselves. So there are over 40,000 nonprofits nationally that are 100% dedicated to supporting veterans. And there is over 100,000 nationally that will support veterans. There's 60,000 that have that element. So when we opened up our summits to everybody, because at the beginning it was only the Fortune 500 companies, when we opened it up to everybody, it was like a herd of cattle showing up from the nonprofits because they saw these big Fortune 500 names and like, we're going to be instant money, right? And so what we would tell them is, look, we have no money to give you. But what we can give you is we can give you the collaboration. We can help you do what you do better. We can help you find veterans that are in need. We can help you build credibility within the Fortune 500 companies. And we can help you find volunteers within the Fortune 500 companies and champions. And you know what? If you do all that, money's eventually going to follow. Right?
Yeah. I mean, certain names people look for, especially in Atlanta, they have places that have headquarters.
Yeah.
UPS.
Yeah. Because we all have foundations.
Exactly.
And so if you build trust and you build volunteerism and you're doing good and find a champion within that company or that foundation, the money is going to follow. And I can tell you, a lot of ones that showed up, some left right away when they saw there was going to be no instant money.
A lot of them are not going to stay.
But a lot of them stayed, and a lot of them stayed, and then it ended up, we really impacted their organization. So not being focused around those dollars, flip the script two ways. So within our own organizations and with the nonprofits.
Okay, so at the core of VETLANTA, what do you guys do?
So VETLANTA, we are I'll use John Phillips, our vice president. He often says we're a collaborator on steroids. So that big network that we talked about at the beginning that wasn't connected, we've connected it. So we have hundreds of nonprofit organizations. We have businesses of all sizes now, small, medium business, the Fortune 500s. We have academia. We have the government organizations have jumped in big. And what we're focused on, this is really cool. What we're focused on is to make Atlanta the premier community in the entire country for veterans and their families to work and live. So, and we've had this great call. The fact of the matter is, our success over the last 6 years, we've got we've built a lot of credibility. People know who we are nationally in the space, and we've had this big call to franchise to other cities, and really, my direction has been no. Let's focus. There's enough to do here in Atlanta to focus on our backyard. There's only so many volunteer hours to go around, right? So I'm blessed. My wife of 32 years is heavily involved with this, but I don't spend a lot of time at home. But what we've done is we've met with several dozen cities and we've given them our playbook. Really? We're like, hey, this is our charter. This is our lessons learned. This is best practices. This is who to work with. This is who to avoid. Because we don't have, the more people who can do this, the better it's going to help veterans and their families, right? And that's what we want. But I tell you what, Atlanta is a great city. There's a lot going on here.
Always.
And especially in the veteran spaces, we've helped structure the space. We've definitely thrown some leadership behind it, and we've built credibility, but everything was already here to be successful. And one of the things that really helped us is we built this from within the Fortune 500 companies. And it was definitely grassroots. Don't get me wrong. It was grassroots. The first meetings, that's my wife started showing up because I needed somebody to fill the seat. So, and I was grabbing people off the street. so I got cookies and water. Why don't you come in and help us fill the seats? And so we grew. I mean, we're over 3,000 members now.
Wow.
Our summits, we have quarterly summits between 400 and 700 people, but I don't think we would have been able to do it without our founding members being Fortune 500 members.
That at your core, to have names like Coca-Cola and Home Depot and all those guys involved speaks volumes. So I guess, okay, so my question is, in the Atlanta market, what is it like for veterans? Is it a good outlook? Is it a rough outlook? What are you guys seeing in the field?
Well, it's a great outlook unless you're a veteran and not getting the help, right? Mm-hmm. So but Atlanta is a tremendous. There are tens of thousands of veterans who transition and move to the Atlanta area each year, and they do it for a multitude of different factors. The first one is we have great education here. Great education opportunities. There's a program called the Yellow Ribbon Program. I've got a bunch of friends who ended up getting master's degrees, MBAs at Emory University through the Yellow Ribbon Program, where that program offsets the difference between tuition and the GI Bill. So essentially, they're getting an MBA without paying anything for it. So there's
I love y'all, but I hate y'all so much.
So there's great education opportunity with all the Fortune 500 companies. There are great opportunities to jump into a corporate environment. There are lots of, we have the CDC here. Yeah. So we have lots of government jobs available as well. And then we have great organizations for nonprofits that are out there. And let me talk about some of those nonprofits. The first one is the homeless veteran situation. It's not as bad as what it was, but it's also not solved. We've had some we've had some past mayors that have said it's solved, and it's not solved in Atlanta. I don't think it's ever solved, and it's also a bigger problem than just the city. So we got actually more homeless veterans living in the hills and the mountains than we do in the city, believe it or not. So they're just, you don't see them. So but in the city, we have this great organization called Veterans Empowerment Organization. It's the nicest homeless shelter you'd ever see. And I challenge you to have the founder on the show. It's a guy by the name of Franz Fortune. Franz is a Haitian immigrant.
Really?
Really. And he moved to Florida and became very successful in real estate. And then with a bubble, 10 years ago, he ended up moving to Atlanta, and he thought it was a national shame to see veterans on the streets. And he actually grabbed 2 of them and moved them into his basement.
Really?
Believe it or not, until his wife said, "Franz, you can't. We have daughters, so you can't have these guys living in the basement." So Franz ended up leasing some apartment buildings, much like the campus here, and they ended up purchasing the apartment buildings in what the Westlake area of Atlanta, and developed this world-class homeless shelter. And it is the nicest homeless shelter I've ever seen.
What area is it in?
So the west side of Atlanta, west of the stadium, Westlake.
Huh.
So look them up. I can introduce you. So they're a great partner. They're doing wonderful things. 2 more great partners are treat post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. We have the Emory Hospital. They have a program dedicated to that. It's called the SHARE program, and they are world class. It's intense therapy. I think it's 16 weeks in resident, and guess what? They totally pick up the 100% of the cost.
Really?
So they don't bill the insurance, and then they don't bill the government. So they're allowed. So since they don't have that government element, they don't have to follow government rules.
They can't do what they
and they're doing great things. They're the leading treatment center in the world for traumatic brain injury. And then we have Emory's. So that was the Shepherd Center. I'm sorry. That was the Shepherd Center's SHARE program. And then we have Emory's Veteran Healthcare Program. Emory's Veterans Healthcare Program really focuses on post-traumatic stress disorder and including sexual assault, PTSD. So I think they're doing great things with that. So we have those 2 wonderful nonprofits. We have organizations. We have Hire Heroes USA. They're a national organization headquartered out of Alpharetta, and they help veterans and spouses with resumes.
Oh,
nice. And I can tell you, veterans coming out of the military tend to have be more competitive with soft skills and hard skills and education than a non-veteran candidate. But what a lot of them do very poorly is writing a resume, because they've never had to do it. Look at me. I joined when I was 17, retired at 38. I'd never written a resume. I'd never had a real job interview. So that skill set was missing. Hire Heroes USA focuses on getting a good quality resume in front of their candidates. So
actually, let's stay there. So for transitioners, what is that like? Because like you said, most of them have spent the majority of their life in the military. They get out. They're not used to being civilians. What are you guys seeing in the field pertaining with that? Is it...
Well, unemployment has definitely gone down a lot. When we first started VETLANTA 6 years ago, we were fully focused on employment. 6 years ago, if you look at it, veteran unemployment was actually higher than civilian unemployment. And it was well over 15%, 17% for that period. And so we threw a lot of effort into that. I can tell you, with the changes of the economy and some of the changes of the politics, veteran unemployment is lower than civilian unemployment, and very, very low, less than 3.5%, depending on where you're at.
What did y'all find at the core of that back in 6 years ago? What was at the core of that? Why was unemployment so high for veterans?
Well, a couple things. First, the resources that the government was offering weren't really structured well to help veterans find jobs. So I think the government stepped up their game a bit. I think industry stepped up their game. They saw the power of hiring military veterans. Nonprofits were created specifically to help veterans transition. Veterans got smarter at it, and then lots of legislation was passed, both at the local, state, and federal level that really helped with that. and then the economy has improved. So now there are more jobs out there, and so I think all those elements together came together, just like any solution, right? If you're going to fix something, it just can't be one element. It can't be one more organization. It needs to be business and government and academia and then the nonprofit world. And all that's come together to help. So while veterans, some of them still struggle to find jobs, I think overall it's better. One of the toughest things that you can have, especially in Atlanta, since there's not that many military bases with huge populations in this area anymore, it's finding a network. So when I moved here, I didn't know a soul. I didn't know one person, and I didn't have a network. So I went from being really have this big network to knowing everybody in the Air Force and not knowing one person. The guy who hired me and my boss at UPS, he lived in Dayton, Ohio. So I didn't even have him. So I had to figure out a lot. And that's what really VETLANTA tries to do and I think veterans are really helped with plugging in our network, whether it's finding a hiring manager or a recruiter, finding a mentor that can help them, or finding a resource, the right person to talk to at the VA, maybe a nonprofit, just somebody the system. Generally most veterans are highly functional. Don't believe everything they read in a blog or in the media. Generally most veterans are highly successful, and you look at the trends. Veterans trend to vote more. They tend to volunteer more. They tend to do all this and really look to be beneficial members of their communities and society. And sometimes they just need a little bit of help and direction. And I think that's what VETLANTA has to offer.
Okay, so I have it might be off the wall for me or you, but not for me. Yeah. Is there a difference in the skill sets of each different branch of the military?
Yeah,
when they become civilians.
Yeah, even within the military there is. So you look at the Air Force and Navy, they're usually more technical than the Army and Marines. Some of that's changing. But you could have somebody who's done nothing but combat infantry for years and years. So coming out of the military, they're going to have a much different skill set, right? So as combat infantry, and this might shock somebody, but your job is to enforce our will. So your job is to kill people. And not many jobs in the civilian world are made for that,
not
right?
Legal ones.
Legal ones. So, but the fact of the matter is, even as somebody with that, you have tons of other experience. You have leadership experience. You have communication experience. You have experience with the technology. You have experience with logistics. You have experience of managing and project management. So it's really being able to translate all those experiences that you have into a resume and then in the interview. And sometimes veterans struggle in interviews because the military is all about we.
But that was one of my next question, having a veteran sit in an interview. But you're not accustomed to having to do that. You're kind of being told where you're going, and you make it work.
Exactly.
Like, what is that experience like for what do y'all find when y'all talk to veterans who are going on interviews?
Generally, resumes and interviews always are something I'm very emotional about. It's on my hot topic, and I love interviews. Besides doing podcasts, interviews are my favorite thing to do. And I do a lot of mock interviews. I do dozens and dozens and dozens of mock interviews each year to help people out. And generally where veterans struggle is making it, I did this instead of we did this. And then they also struggle is they have stories. I mean, we have, I have hundreds and hundreds of stories about my time in the Air Force, but it's being able to take that story and translate it into meaningful experience. And it's easily done, but you haven't had experience doing this before. So, some veterans do struggle with that.
So you were saying, you mentioned this, PTSD. How bad is it really in the veteran community?
It's funny.
Like you said, you listen to blogs and stuff, but how bad is it really in the veteran community?
Generally, the occurrence of PTSD are about the same or lower than in the civilian world. Huh. So more people get PTSD these days from car accidents versus combat operations. PTSD is very serious. Can be very serious. Don't let any politician or media or other veterans themselves say it's not a serious thing, because it can be very serious. But there are I'm trying to say this tactfully. I've known more civilians who've had PTSD in the workplace from other stuff going on at home or something that's come up than somebody's had it in the military, honestly.
Okay, so it's not as big of a problem as we see across the media.
Yeah, no, the media will make it seem like every veteran has PTSD and everybody's on the edge. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of veterans who don't have it. So generally, most veterans don't have it. And generally, the veterans who have PTSD are dealing with it just fine. So with that said, if you know somebody with PTSD or you're out there suffering from PTSD, please go get help. Look at the SHARE program at the Shepherd Center, Emory's Veteran Healthcare Program. There's thousands of resources to help you. The PTSD Foundation of America is another great one, and they have a wide range of programs that can help.
Okay. All right. So what are the 3 major issues that you guys are tackling this year within the veteran community?
Yeah, that's a great one. We've put a lot of work into the homeless situation. The homeless situation is I think we've undercounted the homeless veteran population. We don't think Atlanta's getting quite the right amount of funding. Atlanta's become a very expensive place to live.
Very.
Affordable housing is create a big vacuum here that we think the chances are to increase the homeless veteran population because there's less affordable housing available. So, that's really at the front and center. I think we're focusing on always the network, the finding the nonprofits that are out there that might not have connected with the VETLANTA yet, and engaging them. The more resources we can have, the more veterans and their families are going to help.
So question, the home buying process for veterans, but there are programs designed for veterans for home buying, correct?
Yeah, home buying, they're absolutely, and the home buying is interesting. So if you're a veteran and you're going to buy a home, use your VA home loan. Go to the VA, the Veterans Administration, and have them help you with that home loan process. It's be very wary of, I probably get 30 letters sent to my house each week from a organization that wants me to either get a new home loan or they know I'm a veteran or refinance. Be very wary, because there's a lot of fraudsters and scammers and schemers in that space. The best thing you can do is plug into a network and talk to people who've gone through that process. So the VA home loan it's a great benefits that we have that's remained intact over dozens of administrations.
Okay, so let's make some distinctions for those like myself who have no affiliation with the military. So there's certain places or certain offices that we hear about.
I'll focus on 3 areas. So the first one is medical treatment. Okay. So the VA will help if you have a service-connected disability. So whether you retired or not, they will provide medical treatment for you. So that's their primary focus, and that's what gets all the bad attention of the media, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's a big national organization. So that's their primary focus. They also have benefits, and they will take care of your benefits, whether it's schooling, so going to college. They will take care of the housing, the VA home loan program, and finally, a benefit everybody's going to need. Everybody will eventually die. So not everybody.
I'm not dying, but I mean, I have a deal. So I'll be around for a minute.
So not everybody goes to the hospital. Not everybody gets a college education. But you'll eventually die. So you have burial benefits, whether you look to be cremated or buried, and they have an office that will help you with that as well.
Okay, so you have the veteran, the VA, and then what is that? There's another one that people talk about all the time. Because I want people to understand, if you know a veteran, where can they go to get certain services, particularly in Atlanta?
Okay, another great one that the people might not be aware of is because the VA used to be in the employment space, and that was fixed about 2 years ago. So the who should be running employment? That's the Department of Labor.
Typically, yeah.
So now the Department of Labor vets runs the employment space, and one of their regional managers, Matt Grobe, is actually a board member of VETLANTA.
Nice.
And it's the great thing about VETLANTA being a club versus a nonprofit is he's allowed to be. So that's another great benefit of being a club. And then we have in Georgia, we have some great assets, state assets. We have the Georgia Veterans Commission, and they take care of a couple of the nursing homes here in Georgia, state-ran nursing homes.
Oh,
and
for
then
veterans.
For veterans.
Huh.
And then we also have they run a transition resource center in believe it or not, Macon, Georgia, of all places.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to say that.
So I still, and I hate to offend any of my state friends and politicians on there, I still hate the fact they moved it to Macon. But it's a brand new facility, has only been there, built a couple years ago, ran by a very great friend of mine, Patricia Ross. And the reason why it's in Macon is halfway between Fort Benning and then the bases on the coast. And so so they're looking they're expanding, and they'll do everything from helping veterans with just some of the soft transition skills to providing a CDL for truck drivers,
nice.
The welding classes, because not everybody wants to go to college and work in corporate America,
we
right?
Just had the Department of Education, Georgia Partnership and Excellence for Education, and we had that conversation about the returning of vocational schools.
Yeah.
Because we decided some years ago we don't need vocational schools. Everybody should go to college.
Which is wrong.
Well, they realized that when you can't build a house because you don't have an electrician. So they realize that now that we should have kept them around.
Exactly. So they're doing great things there. We're really Georgia does a lot. The state of Georgia does a lot of right things for veterans. So one of the things, if you're looking for resources, take a look at vetlanta.org, vetlanta.org, or I'm big into LinkedIn. So reach out to me on LinkedIn,
I'm really the joys of
LinkedIn. And I'll point you in the right direction.
All right. So from last year to this year, what great things were you guys able to accomplish?
So from last year to this year, every year is different, and so we did some great things last year. We actually had the Arthur Blank Family Company of Businesses host a summit, and we got to have the stadium at the summit at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Nice.
So which was really cool. We had over 1,000 people there. And the governor was our keynote speaker. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it really doesn't matter. One thing our politicians normally agree on is veterans. Mm-hmm. And we need politicians everywhere from the president to a local councilman engaged. And so that was something we had planned for a long, long time to get the governor engaged. Now we want the mayor engaged. So we've struck out so far. Sorry, Mayor Bottoms. So getting her at a summit, and we struck out with Mayor Reed. But we're here to make Atlanta the premier destination in the country, and we've had Chamber of Commerce's, we've had national and city leaders from other cities. So I think that's something we want to do in 2020 is really form more of a partnership with the city of Atlanta. So we got the state, we're really proud. We got the Georgia National Guard to host their first summit.
Really?
And that was back in December. And that was great having the National Guard get on board, and so we were really very happy with that.
Where'd y'all have that at? Where was that even held?
It was at the Clay National Guard Center up in Marietta. So we had it in one of their hangars. We had about 350 to 400 people show up for that one. We had our first Medal of Honor winner as the keynote speaker, David Bellavia, who ended up being an awesome guy, great speaker, great person, great American, and he's the latest Medal of Honor winner. Although his action was over a decade ago, he was just awarded it. So so that was very, very fresh, amazing story. And then we also established a partnership with the Warrior Alliance. So the Warrior Alliance was really a great organization that was established out of one of our shortfalls. You remember we talked about, hey, we don't have money, and because we don't have money, we're limited on our capabilities. Mm-hmm. One of the capabilities that we noticed right away that was needed was case management. So we were getting all these veterans referred to us, and we were referring them to a hospital, a nonprofit, a government agency, a company, but we didn't have the software for that referral. What was happening, or did we have staffing to follow up with that? We're running our organization for a specific. To make Atlanta the premier community in the country, not to do case management. Mm. So we got to ask that, hey, would you guys want to do this? And we'll get you the funding. And we thought about it long and hard, and we decided not to do it because we thought by becoming a nonprofit and by taking funding and knowing that originally, that was also going to be fundraising, and then we were going to have to hire employees. Yeah. And that was going to change the organization too much. So an organization was created called the Warrior Alliance, and they're doing just that. They hired several dozen employees. They've formed these great strategic partnerships out of Atlanta with all the care providers, and they've partnered with another nonprofit and developed some world-class case management software. Good, so now we're looking at, hey, a veteran doesn't get lost in the cracks, and so we were able to. The event at the stadium last year was their launch party. Nice. And we launched them and let everybody know who they were, and they're starting to do big things and helping dozens and actually hundreds of veterans a month.
Well, that'd be a good thing because now you can actually not only just track the veteran, because you can also create a rubric to say we've done this, we've done that, and actually have the numbers to actually follow it up. So that's actually a very good thing. All right, so 2020. What is at the top of y'all agenda for 2020?
So 2020, we have a summit coming up on March 3rd, and that's going to be hosted.
That's around the corner.
Yeah, right around the corner.
That's around the corner.
Hosted by Fiserv, and this one's going to be dedicated on veteran-owned business owners, so small business owners. And
there are a lot of those.
Yeah, really to do a couple things to provide them some resources, to provide them some inspiration. We have two great keynote speakers coming in, to provide them some tools, and really hope to connect them with the supplier diversity programs from our companies. And so that's our focus for the summits. For this next summit coming up, we're really trying to do bigger things on the healthcare side of the house. We have the homeless pillar that we have that we're always dedicated onto that, and then as always to help people transition successfully from the military to both the civilian world and in Georgia. We want to draw more successful veterans and make veterans and family members successful here.
Okay. So what does the process look like to get involved with you guys? Like somebody refers somebody to you guys, and then from there, what happens? Yeah,
it's mostly word of mouth. But if you're interested in Vetlanta at all, go to our website, vetlanta.org, sign up for the newsletter. So we have a newsletter, and I promise you won't get a bunch of spam. So you'll get one newsletter a month, and then the best thing you get out of it, you get direct invites to our summits. And I'll tell you this: if you see an invite to our summit, don't let the paint dry, because they tend to fill up very, very quickly, and because we're really outgrowing a lot of that free space that we have available. So as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, the summits are going to get harder and harder and harder to get space. So come on out. Come on out. Seeing is believing for our summits, right? And,
yeah. I mean,
we have a lot of people that whether I'm speaking at a college or in front of a government agency or a corporation. I always say, just come out. They ask, if you come out, you'll see the goodness that is happening. And usually when people come out, they're hooked and they want to help.
I mean, it sounds amazing. And then, like I said, you have all the big names on it. So you can't go wrong with working with you guys.
Yeah.
So in essence, you guys are kind of like a hub for veteran geared stuff.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. A hub is a great way. We're the connector.
So do you have like a headquarters that people can physically come to? Or
no, we again just being a club without any funding, so we depend on free space. So I have a lot. We this is so funny from the very beginning, and it was something I pulled from the military. We have a lot of our meetings over breakfast at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, I wouldn't be there.
And it's funny that's how we start because we vet every nonprofit that we deal with, and that's how we start it. It's like, hey, if you really wanted to come deal with us, it's 6:30 in the morning, in Alpharetta, Georgia, up 400, and and people are always like, can we do it at 10? It's like, it's like, no, not really. I mean, we all have jobs, and so this is volunteerism for us. So we've got to do it at your non-traditional hours.
Yeah, that will do it. Like 6:30, I'm like, yeah. Good for me.
So we hang out at the original Pancake House, and we hang out.
You got me on that one. I love it. You got me on that one.
So I always kid around and say I weighed $160 when I started VETLANTA, and for those on radio, I can tell you I'm a couple pounds heavier now. But and then we do our offices we meet at Starbucks, or it's real great that the companies and the nonprofits around us have really stepped up. We've already have summit sponsors through Q1 of next year.
Seriously.
So we never meet in the same spot, but then you get the diversity of going somewhere else. I've been lucky enough if I get to spend time in all these Atlanta companies, which has been very cool. From Turner,
I'll say $1 million boardrooms. I can only imagine.
Yeah, from Turner to Home Depot headquarters has a Starbucks in their lobby, which I kind of dig. Right,
good Lord.
The Coca-Cola, which is. If you've never been to Coca-Cola headquarters, is one of the neatest headquarters I've ever seen. Delta, I love airplanes, so I love going down to Delta. So we have some really great headquarters around the city.
Okay. So where's the real need? Like, where are you guys seeing the real need, the biggest need now? Well,
the biggest need is from somebody who wants it or needs it, right? Mm-hmm. So it could be vastly different. Unfortunately, we as a meaning or a country, hasn't been able to solve the suicide problem. So generally the numbers are between 20 and 22 veterans each day commit suicide. Each day. Wow. So you got to think about that. Think about the way tobacco has hit the media. With some of the lung problems coming out with the new tobacco products. Think about how much media attention that's gotten. Think about how it's unfortunate, but it's only been several dozen deaths. Maybe several thousand people get sick. Veterans, 22 a day, veteran and military, take their own lives. So we need to fix that, and everything that's been thrown up there hasn't mitigated at all. It's stayed pretty consistent. The Air Force, which is actually, I read last night, they increased the active duty suicides increased by 33%. From 2017 or 2018 to 2019. So that is a huge need. Because
that's a lot.
So to find out exactly what's going on, what resources from government, academia, and the civilian world need to be applied. You're not going to be able to eliminate that. Absolutely, but you're going to help reduce it. And so I would say that is a great big need.
any ideologies of what's at the core of that? Because I mean, if our quality of life has increased and gotten better over the years, why is that rate going up?
So it's a combination of many things. So this is my personal opinion. The military tends to be more stressful. So you're away from home. You're in combat operations. Generally, though, this is very generally. When a service member takes their lives, it's not usually one factor. It's not just, hey, I was gone from home a lot and you know, I had marital problems. It's usually I had marital problems, I had financial problems, I had problems at work that create the storm. So, you know, in all the cases I've seen, it's been just a combination of many factors.
Okay. What advice would you give individuals who are just now getting ready to hit that transition from military to civilian?
Start networking out of your network. So veterans, military members do this great. We have these great networks. Everybody in the military, right? So everybody we know. So start looking at, especially LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool for connecting with. So if you're interested in moving to Atlanta and you're interested in going to work for Coke, maybe you should start making friends at Coke.
Which I don't think people understand the power of LinkedIn, because you can actually type in Coke and it lists executives from Coke, and you can actually reach out to them.
And guess what? Generally, people want to help veterans. So the worst they can do is ignore you. They can't take away your birthday, right? So start connecting. So network, and then look. Don't think too far downstream when you're doing transition. If you're looking at, hey, starting the plan 2-3 months out, you're wrong. So you got to plan a full year out. One of the organizations that I really like is called American Corporate Partners. They will assign you a free corporate mentor.
Really?
One-on-one. For your spouse too, for a full year out. So I would recommend folks sign up for that program, because that program's it's not to get you a job, it's to help you with the entire transition, to help you improve your network, to help you change the military mindset to the civilian mindset, to help you align with some of the resources that are out there. And it's a wonderful program.
Okay, so you gave a lot of organizations, so you got to give me top 5. And not top 5 as in they're better, just the top 5 that they would probably need right out of the military. So
the first one is you got to have a great resume. So Hire Heroes USA. Okay. So Hire Heroes USA will help you with that resume. They also help you out with mock interviews. So you know, everybody who sends me a resume, I send them right to Hire Heroes USA, and some of the resumes are great, and I'm like, hey, just take a look at their format. So so that's a great one. American Corporate Partners for the mentorship.
Okay.
And then we'll do 4Block. So FOUR block.
How about say how?
And so 4Block is interesting. When you go to leave the military, believe it or not, Congress has passed a bill that says you have to have mandatory transition counseling to help you transition, and that transition is training. It's mixed reviews on it, but they again, it's like 3 days long, and they can't cover everything in 3 days. So they cover, like, their resume writing is like an hour long, right? So they do small blocks of stuff, and a lot of veterans, especially younger veterans, leave the military to go right into academia, and they sit in that transition training and pull out their phones and just on their phones or the whole time or go la 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 la. I do not want to listen. I'm not listening. I'm going to college. None of this applies. Well, guess what? Now it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, and now it's time to get it in a job. They've got 1 or 2 college degrees, and you can't go back to the military base to get that transition. So what 4Block does is they offer a full semester worth of transition counseling, everywhere from somebody to teach you how to dress for success, to somebody to teach you how to negotiate the job offer. I teach a class on at the Atlanta chapter on corporate culture, and so that's a great one. So that's number 3. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Our Heroes Foundation has a fellowship program. Again, another bill is called the VOW Act that Congress passed, where you can do fellowships a full 6 months before you transition out of the military. So there's these fellowships that have popped up all over the country, and both medium and large businesses are involved with. And so if you have an opportunity to do a fellowship, that would be great. And we'll go to the last one. We'll go.
See your fifth. What's the fifth?
So the fifth, I'm gonna surprise a lot of people, and I'm gonna say the USO. So the USO is, a lot of people know the USO from being at airports and passing out cookies and bottled water to troops that are transitioning and the whole bit. But the USO does much more than that.
Okay, so what does USO stand for?
So United Service Organization, and I hope I got that right.
I hope you do. That's one of the few I do not know.
So they've been around for many, many, many decades. People tend to know the USO with Bob Hope, and they also have I'm not going to say the name because I'm running it into a blank space, but they have a transition program as well, where they'll provide transition assistance, specifically for looking for your next career, helping with the resume, mock interviews, the job offer process.
Okay. For basic needs, housing.
For basic needs, it depends what kind of shape you're in. Basic needs, like when I got out, I was 20 years drawing a retirement check. My basic needs were to find a community with an affordable house with good school systems, but I didn't have a lot of basic needs. I was basic needs. There might be somebody going from one paycheck to the next. So if you need critical basic needs, the United Way, believe it or not, really? the United Way has a program called 411. If you are in need, if you're not being able to pay your bills, it's a veteran dedicated program, or you're having problems finding health care, so United Way, 411. And that's national wide. If you're here in Atlanta, the greater Atlanta area, which incorporates the 22 counties around Atlanta, the Warrior Alliance. The Warrior Alliance can help find, whether you need help with finding a place to stay, or finding a job, transportation, they can help as well. They come with that powerful, that tracking system they use.
Okay, good deal. All right, so we're down to a minute.
Okay.
So tell everybody how to get in touch with you.
LinkedIn is the best way. Lloyd Knight.
I should have known you in this LinkedIn thing.
So love LinkedIn. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn. And then Vetlanta. Thank you. Vetlanta.org. Sign up for a email list. Even if you don't live in Atlanta, that newsletter we have has a lot of great opportunities and information about national nonprofits.
Okay. What's next for Vetlanta?
Growing, getting the right people in the right room for the right reasons to better help veterans and their families.
All right. So there you have it, everyone. Mr. Lloyd Knight here from Vetlanta. And you will also see him on TV next week on Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Leadership Blend television show. But we are out of time, so thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time, same place, same time on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
You're listening to the Leadership Blend podcast.
I'm ready.
On the Thinking Out Loud Network. Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.